Welcome to the High Voltage Light Electric Vehicle channel. This video is a look at a bike that I was sent to review from a company called MacFox. Maybe they have some Scottish ancestry in there somewhere. I was interested in this bike because I've always wanted to ride this style of e-bike, which I think was first made by the Super 73 people. This is their bare bones model that you can get for $1,000, and they wanted me to say that on their Black Friday deal you can get it for $900 with a free rear light. I think really they'd be better off just including the rear light as standard. There is a plug at the back, so I guess I can just cut it off and wire one in once I figure the voltages out. If you want to get a few extras, like a frame bag and fenders, then it'll go up to just under $1,400 with the same discount. They also have an X2 version with suspension, which will run you over $2,000. I'm not sure with the obsession with the letter X these days. Maybe we can blame it all on pirates for starting with their treasure maps. So my interest in this is twofold. The first is, how good is it, and is it a viable bike out of the box? And the second is, by making a few upgrades in a few key areas, how much can I improve things and how much would that cost? Like, would you be better off just buying something more expensive to start with? So I'm going to start off by going over the things that I like, and I will cover the things that I'm not happy with. And there's one aspect of this bike that I'm really not happy with at all, but I'll come to that in a bit. And then I'm going to take it on the road and see how it performs. And I've also recorded some video of the process of putting it together, which did take significantly longer than I thought it would for various reasons. So I'll start off with things that I like. And the first thing is the frame itself. I do like the style of frame. And this version looks solidly constructed. It's nothing fancy, but there's a lot of real estate for putting things on it. And I like that it has horizontal rear dropouts for chain tensioning. If I do some mods with this bike, then that's going to come in handy. I like the BMX style bars. I like the riding position, which is pretty comfortable. I like that the seat is pretty comfortable. It's got plenty of room for two. Like, my kid is already badgering me to take him to school on it, so I might have to get some studded tyres. The tyres themselves look okay, but they are on the cheaper end of things, and we're heading into winter here. I like the way the headlight has a running light for in the day and a more powerful mode for at night. They didn't supply the tail light, but it should be pretty easy to fit one. I like the style of battery they're using. It's easy to take out. You can get this bike with two batteries, so you can swap between them. And I think the attachment plate is pretty universal, so it might be possible that other batteries of this type will also work with the bike, but obviously need to check before you try out. It also means that if this battery fails, it should be easier to replace it. And that's a problem with some bikes of this type, is getting a replacement battery. They do some variations of the model where you can have an extra battery and then you can swap between them and get extra range. I like that for the price, you get pretty much a complete bike. I'm less keen on the fenders being an extra for $100 and the frame bag being another extra $100 because the cost of MacFox for those is minimal. So I think they'd have been better off just having them as part of the package and then bump up the initial cost a little bit, but definitely not by $200. I like the display being simple, and I like that you can read it during the day. Some things that I didn't like were the instruction manual didn't cover most of the assembly, and there was nothing for the front wheel, kickstand or light. And there were some other issues with assembly, like I had to remove the wrap from the cabling in order to connect the display because there was not enough slack. So if it's like this for like a Christmas Day project, I can see Dad's not being a happy bunny. The manual should be a lot more comprehensive in this regard. I spent half an hour prattling around with the front brake trying to adjust it, and it's still scraping the disc. And I'm not sure if it's the caliper or the mount or something bent out of place, but the usual tricks they do are not working with it. So I'm going to take it to my mate's shop and see if we can figure it out there. The brakes are actually one of the first upgrades I'll probably do, and I have a few leads I'm working on for some high quality but budget friendly forks and brakes, so that should be a fun one. The tools that it comes with are very low quality, especially the spanner, and I went straight to using like my socket set and the Allen wrenches that I have. The thing that drives me truly nuts about this bike is the controller, and I was trying to figure out where it was located on the bike. So I traced the wires back from the motor to the middle of the bike, and sure enough, it's in here. And by in, I mean, as far as I can tell, it's welded in there. And I can't see a way of getting to this. Like, if there's a controller failure, you're going to have to grind off the welds to then pull it out. And I don't understand why. It means that it was inserted into the frame and then it got welded and presumably painted afterwards. And the whole process makes zero sense. The chance of a controller being damaged in this process is pretty high. And then you've just welded the damn thing in a cocoon. It also contributes to the throwaway nature of the bike because the battery looks like it can be easily replaced. So why are they locking the controller away? Don't know. These bikes should be built so they can be repaired. They're using cheaper components, so making it hard to replace these components is going to dent the life of this bike. I definitely urge MacFox to stop doing this. It would not be difficult to swap this to a screw-on plate. It's absolutely going to fall foul of the upcoming right to repair laws that are being implemented and need to be implemented. So anyway, quick look at the bike. Going to go out on the road and I'll give you my thoughts on how it performs. So I kind of have the feeling that MacFox are not going to be particularly happy with the review here, but at the end of the day, they asked for a review, not a compliments video. So the first thing here to look at is speed and power. And there are three options. You've got low, medium and high. And the speed is limited to 25 miles an hour. There's no option to change it to kilometers per hour, which would have been kind of useful for Canada. The throttle response is a little bit jerky. It's either on or off. There's no real band of modulation. It made things quite difficult going around some of the tight hairpin bends that you can see if you watch a bit later in the video. The pedal assist was much better actually. It engaged rapidly and it stopped pretty promptly after you stop pedaling as well, which is good because some of them tend to start late and then carry on too late. The brakes, despite the annoying rub on the front, work pretty decently. Compared to some other bikes in this kind of price range, this one is not as heavy, so maybe that has an impact. The tyres, although budget, felt okay, and they didn't want to keep turning when you were going around corners, which is also a thing that you can get with cheaper bikes and tyres. The kickstand is a bit of a problem. If you look at the photo that I've put here, you can see that the proximity to the pedal is quite close, and I found that I was catching it on occasion with my heel when I was pedaling, and I'm only a size 9.5, so I think people with bigger feet are going to be doing this more often. The seat, while being really quite comfortable, it's shaped in a way that means your thighs chafe the sides when pedaling, and I don't know if this is a standard thing with this type of bike. I don't know if that happens with the Super 73s as well, but I'm pretty sure that's going to lead to either you wearing out your pants or the seat, or a combination of the two. I didn't miss the lack of suspension because I think largely because of the combination of the fat tyres and the seat, although on more bumpy surfaces like off-road it may well need some front suspension. I don't really think this is set up for being an off-road bike anyway. I did find overall the experience of this bike a bit frustrating because on one hand it was not horrible to ride, the riding position was good and I felt comfortable on the bike and the balance felt good. It's just let down by build quality issues. I think they'd be better off pricing this at $1,500 and give people better quality bearings and hydraulic brakes and front suspension, things like fenders and a rear light, iron out the niggles, a lack of instructions, fix simple things like the kickstand impingement, and definitely don't weld the controller into the frame. Anyway, I'm going to work with this frame because I think I can fix most of the issues and turn this into quite a cool little bike for doing the school run with. In terms of buying one, it's difficult to give it a full-throated recommendation because of the issues. If you buy one, I would look at it as buying a bit of a project. Yes, it will get you from A to B for a while, but you'll need to put more money into this before too long. So if you're looking for a cheap bike of this type and don't have much cash, then it is an option, but just don't expect amazing things from it, and do so planning to later upgrade things like your brakes and other mechanical components. Anyway, if you made this far, thanks for watching. I'm going to let the remainder of the ride footage play out, and if you want to watch that, you can you can do that. At the end, I'm also going to put my assembly video section on so you can see some of the issues that I ran into during the build of the bike. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to post them in the comments. A big shout out to all the channel members, and I'll see you all in the next video. Cheers. So the bike comes in a nice big box. It wasn't actually that bad to get around. It's only 37 kilos, I think it said on the side. So I'm going to get it out of there and very briefly go over the construction of this. It seems to be very well packaged in here, nice and tidy. So I don't think this is going to take very long. It looks mostly put together already, with the exception possibly of the front wheel and probably. So inside of this we get our standard box of bits with the instructions, pedals, charger, and then everything is secured in with various zip ties. So I'm just going to go through and I'm going to be removing all of these and I'll get the bike out. So having got everything out of the box, all the zip ties off, we are left with the assembly. So we're going to be putting on this massive light here. There's the pedals, there's a kickstand, there's getting the front wheel, and there's also getting the bars here secured to the fork there. So I'll be getting some of my own tools because I don't like using the stuff that it comes with, and I'll get all this done. So move down to the front. The bars are on, which is great. That's pretty easy to do. It's just 4 bolts to secure them in position. And then I'm moving down to the front here, which is to get the front wheel on. And there is actually a paragraph in the book to explain how to do this. And at the moment, the wheel, which I'm going to try in the slot. So am I going to be reusing these bolts here, or will I be using these bolts here? I'm not quite sure right now, so it's going to be a bit of trial and error. One thing I did notice is like this bearing in here is not particularly smooth. So I don't know if that is a defect from the factory in terms of the bearing, but that does not feel like a smooth front wheel bearing. Okay, so I flipped it onto his back to make it a bit easier to deal with. And looking at this, there's a gap either side around the axle here. And going through the kit of parts, there's some washers here. So I'm going to assume that these go on the inside, these lock in on the outside, and then these nuts hold the whole thing into place. So we'll give that a crack and I'll show you how it goes. So scratch all of that. The actual correct sequence is to use the inner washer, then the lock washer to kind of key in with this hole here, and then the nut on the outside. And what I noticed was this thing here is not fit for purpose. Like don't use this unless you absolutely have to. You want a 16mm socket to deal with this job. What I've noticed so far is giving this a quick spin. It's definitely rubbing on the calipers. And if you look at the position of that caliper through there, it's only engaging with like a very tiny amount on the outside. So the brakes definitely need adjusting before I do any riding on this bike. Okay, so getting the pedals on, super easy, like obviously. What's slightly more interesting is I have all these other parts here to fit the front light on and to get the stand on. And there's no instructions for any of this in the manual. So I'm kind of looking at this and you can see it is threaded on the one side. So it clearly does go on in this position. And I have these bolts here which will fit through those holes and they do thread in. So I'm presuming it's these, but there's also these here as well, which fit on these bolts. And then on the headlight, there are, I presume these brackets fit in the side and work with these brackets here to go up onto the front, but I can't find like these bolts here appear for the side. I can't find any bolts for with these brackets. So I'll comb through the parts again. I'm going to start off by getting the stand on and see how that goes. So that's the kickstand on, and what I will say is get these bolts started in the threads before kind of going much further, otherwise it'll kind of pull that out of alignment and you'll find it difficult to get the whole thing on. But that seems to work reasonably well. So with the the huge light here at the front. I'm kind of guessing that the soft spacer should go in the middle and these should go kind of in to the out, but I think they might actually go the other way. Yeah, so I think based on this, it's gonna line up like this. So now there are two of the little brackets and a couple of smaller bolts, which yeah, it's going to be interesting getting this all in with just two hands. I might have to get my kid to help me later with this one. Okay, so the front light is on. I'll get it just a bit more. The brackets are quite awkward to get on. It kind of pulls them in with a bolt on the other side and on this side as well, and it's a little bit difficult. So I'm going to move on to doing the wiring. The brakes need to be tightened up because they're supplied loose. The issue I've got right now though is this is the main, well, the display connector, and it won't actually reach to connect. So I think what I'm going to have to do is take the wrap off of this and then see if I can join the two connectors together. I will say so far in this process, it's definitely been more of a ball ache than I was expecting with this kind of bike. The last one I did went together like much quicker than this. So hopefully there is going to be enough slack that I can pull through. Otherwise, I'll have to maybe adjust or move the position of the display if I can, but I'm not sure if I can because it's linked directly into the throttle here. So I'll try that and we'll see how it goes. So by removing this piece, I'm not going to put it back in for now. I'm just using a couple of zip ties to keep this tidy. I'll maybe replace that a bit later. But yeah, it now powers on. It looks like it has this light on all the time, and then if I push this, then it turns on, I guess, the main beam. So it has like a running light, which is quite nice. Yeah, it's unfortunate about that being too short, but I'll get this tidied up a bit better with a couple more zip ties, and then I'll maybe look at putting that back on later. But I want to get the brakes in position first and make sure there's no issues with any impingement. Okay, so it's together. I've spent a bit of time, well, actually spent about half an hour messing around with the front brake and trying to get it to not bind on the front disc, and I'm not sure if it's the brake unit or if it's the disc itself. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get it down to my mate's shop and we'll have a good look at it and see exactly what it is, and I can always switch out the disc if I need to. It's definitely been more of an issue getting this bike together than the other one that I got sent to review. I thought it'd be really easy actually, looking at it from the outside of the box, and certain parts were. The lack of clear instructions is definitely a big part of it. You have to kind of guess with a few of the parts, which, I mean, it's not too onerous. Like someone with mechanical skills should have no problems with this at all. But yeah, the front brake is concerning and the front bearing on that wheel is a little bit concerning. But it's together enough to go and have a ride, and I'll give you my thoughts on the various different aspects of the bike. And yeah, so it's probably taken me about an hour and a half to get this all done and to play about with the front electronics and play about with the front wheel. I think if I was to give them some advice, I would make sure that aspects of this are checked when it's being done. So check that you can plug in all of the cables before they go out. Check that the bearing is good on the front wheel. Check that the brake isn't rubbing if possible. The back one is fine, like that's set up great. But I think maybe they need to load up the front wheel and set that brake up, because I'm not sure people are going to want to spend ages pressing around with the front brake when they first get it. But anyway, we'll get it fixed and go from there.